Hello and welcome to the First Issue Club podcast. We are the place where each and every single week we read and talk about the new comics that are coming out each week. It is the place for new. If you wanted other people to talk about old stuff and regular Marvel stuff, that's some other chuds on some other podcast. But here, you come and you bask and bathe in the glory of new comic book shit premium for yours truly. Thanks for joining all of us today and serving up that First Issue Club goodness for you. We have in the club today, me. We also have Mike D.
Hello.
Caitlin.
Hi.
And Greg. Greg, you got some upfront news about our podcast that you might want to share to everybody.
Yeah, so I did a thing where I set the First Issue Club up with a hotline. It is 816-200-0014. If you got questions, if you've got comments, if you've got common complaints, call in. Let us know. And if it's a good question or a good comment or a funny enough insult, we'll put it on the show and we'll answer it. Now, I have to specify, it's not a live phone call, so you're not going to be calling in at 2 in the morning, and I'm going to be like, hold on, let me connect you to First Issue Club, and you got to wake us all up.
They understand the mechanics.
I just feel like it needs to be just drawn out here in black and white. Don't do that.
Okay.
You leave a message, that way you can't fend for yourself when we come after you.
Because we're brutal.
It functions much like letters to the editor. Tell us what you think. Talk about your cat. Whatever it is you need to do, it'll be played here, likely.
Yeah, totally.
This week we are covering Stillwater, and we are covering Iron Man #1. We got comic book news now.
We do.
I got news. You guys got news?
I got a couple points. Nothing crazy.
Okay. I got one normal and then one crazy after your points.
I got, 4 pretty crazy. 4 pretty normal. Excuse me.
Okay, let's start with the normies.
All right, go for it.
It's really escalated.
Yeah.
Korra, the television show.
Yes,
and
the spinoff from Avatar the Airbender, correct?
Yes. Had a free comic book day comic, and they're going to release a comic book called Turf Wars. And they are exploring, they're going to have her just be a straight up, I think, lesbian in this comic book, which if anybody watched the television show, it ends on a, I guess, like, elusive note on her walking into a world holding the hand of another female, and there's a lot of debate as to whether or not she was actually attracted to females. This comic book is going to go further with that.
That's great. Exploring the, sexual identity of a very popular character. I wish it wasn't a huge deal for people.
Right.
Well,
I think it's kind of a cool deal in that
It's a kid's show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kid show, and then kind of famously, Evangelion did this, ended on a note where it was like the main character could be gay, but it was up for the interpretation of the viewer. And I think it's if you go into fandom on that, there's obviously debates on both sides. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why they would make it ambiguous, but I love that this comic is like, no, it's not ambiguous.
Yeah. Not
just friends. There's a romance. You can be friends with people of the same
gender and different genders.
Yes.
That's how friends kind of work. That's also how love kind of works.
Newsflash, you can love anybody.
It's a hard stance by First Issue Club.
You just love anybody you want. All right, give us some more normie news hits.
These are pretty normie. I'm sure you guys saw this. The casting for She-Hulk has finally come out.
I did.
For Disney Plus. It is Tatiana Maslany, most famously in Orphan Black. So if you guys liked Orphan Black and you liked her in it, I'm sure a lot of you are very excited. I'd never watched Orphan Black, but I trust Marvel with my life.
She's fantastic. And she's won Emmys for her role in that show, wherein she played tons of different people. So she's quite a talented actress.
I would call her the Sarah Michelle Gellar of the 2010s.
She's also...
Can that be Sarah Michelle Gellar? She's very much still alive.
But she's not popular.
She's not acting anymore either, I don't think.
Well, have you asked her if she's still acting?
I'm pretty sure they've done some article about her in People where she's like, I stepped away from the spotlight. They all do that kind of stuff.
Caitlin knows, and she consulted the IMDb before this show.
I listened to... So Tatiana Maslany is a big Comedy Bang Bang fan, podcast we like, and she was on an episode of a Patreon podcast called We Have to Stop Talking TMNT on CBB, wherein they take all their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle conversations from Comedy Bang Bang and keep them exclusively for this Patreon podcast. And you find out on this that she is like a Secret of the Ooze super fan. Like, she can quote the entire Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 movie.
No, that's the second one, correct?
Yes. And down to like she knows and has memorized like the sound effects even of the fight scenes. She can be like,
Wow.
What?
That is crazy.
Okay, that's cool.
I
so
have some-
super nerd.
I have
So-
some TMNT lore. My grandma only owned one VHS tape at her house. And so my brother and I have seen TMNT 3, Turtles in Time, 800 times.
When I moved to
a
Kansas
quality
City,
movie.
I only had the 4-pack DVD that I got at like Big Lots. So I watched it. I watched all 4
What's the fourth?
all the
Oh,
time.
like the new one, the newest.
yeah,
one?
the
The animated one,
Yeah.
right?
I like that one actually.
It's not bad.
The CGI one, you mean? Is it by animated? Is that what you mean?
No,
talking
there
about-
was one before.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There was.
It's got like a weird.
I think it was like
It's
2016, 2014, somewhere around there.
And all the turtles look different, right? They like
Sure.
they made them look like different species of
They all,
turtles.
they all look like
Yes.
foxes.
Like one was a snapping turtle.
yeah.
you're
Yeah,
right,
yeah. Idiot.
I watched. I will say I watched that one the least.
I thought that one was really bad.
I actually liked it.
Well, let's just segue out of that. Okay, so you know how DC Universe came out like last year, and they touted it as like you can go there for everything. Like it'll have our TV shows, our movies, our comic backlog, or whatever. And then slowly realized they did not know what the fuck they were doing, and it kind of fell by the wayside. Well, it's back. DC Infinite is back as kind of like their answer to Marvel Unlimited. All their TV shows and their movies have gone to HBO Max, and so
Right.
they're using this app now as a way to showcase their comics and give all their backlog comics, like Marvel Universe, or Marvel Unlimited, excuse me.
I mean, it's the same thing as Marvel Unlimited, just DC.
Yeah,
Do you know what the pricing structure is on it? Is it a good deal?
I don't, and I apologize to all of our fans here who are waiting to hear the price point. I'm guessing it's probably similar to Marvel, which is about $10. So if I force you to buy this app and it's $11, email me. I'll mail you $1.
Call the hotline.
There's a lot of
Call the
Complain.
fucking hotline.
There's a lot of people I've heard that listen to this podcast instead of Googling shit. And so
Oh,
if
I'm so sorry.
If that's the case, vote Democrat this year, folks. There's no other option, actually.
Uncontested.
So we're looking up, we'll say about $10. So it should be $10, unless it's comparable to Marvel Unlimited. Getting out of DC news, some final Marvel news coming out. It was just announced that WandaVision will be debuting on Disney Plus in 2020.
Oh,
I
really?
don't have much time.
they're not. Yeah. They
So,
gotta sneak it in.
I'm thinking it's probably going to be about December-ish. So even if it's December 30th, it's still technically in the 2020s.
Do you think a lot of it was already in the can, or do you think they've just been filming?
They had probably gone into production a little bit, and then COVID hit, and they had to really derail. So I'm thinking they got back in, and they were able to do some digital effects for the first maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and I think production for a lot of shows now has pretty much started back up in small pockets. What's funny is the rumor swirling now is that Black Widow's actually going to get pushed back to 2021.
Oh, weird.
And I'm thinking they want a theatrical release.
Right.
They're probably going to wait until, what, March, April?
well, it's
those
her
movies
last.
make like $1 billion.
Yeah. And if it's her last hurrah in that kind of.
Yeah, and I don't even know how much money Mulan made.
I think it did pretty well,
Yeah?
honestly. Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
Because that was the first Disney foray into digital releases and video on demand.
Robbing money from theaters.
Yeah, oh my God. They're going to be a goddamn graveyard. If only there was something that we could do to save them. But, yeah.
All right, 200 million.
200 million.
I don't think that's that good.
No, that's how much it costs to make.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
That's good. That's cheap these days.
Well, when you think about Avengers, cost $1 billion to make.
A Billy?
Well, probably $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
A Billy. And that's all my normie news. God help me for what's about to happen to us because this next news point is your wacky one. Is that correct?
Crazy. Like, so good we got to cover it.
Oh, okay.
A lot of other podcasts, comic book podcasts, if you've been here a while, you would know they would stray away from this news title, but we
I already do not trust this.
but we had to go ahead and fetch it. Did you guys see they uncovered like a journal from Stan Lee, and they found out that his inspiration for Spider-Man was actually having intercourse with a spider?
You're saying Stan Lee was having coitus
Yes.
with an arachnid.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought, man, wouldn't it be crazy if we had a kid because of this? I mean, I'm wearing a condom, so it can't happen. But
Well, it goes something like that, but I actually have the document.
of course, thank God.
It says
We got the Snyder Cut first before anybody, and we got the first look into Stan Lee's journal. What year is this?
undisclosed. It didn't.
Oh, I see.
He wasn't. He
the
didn't
ink
date,
is smudged.
He
The
didn't
ink is
date his entries.
Oh, sure.
This is It was
Like a
from
Dream Journal.
It was from BuzzFeed, so I just pulled up the article.
Oh, BuzzFeed broke this.
They
not
broke
us.
it. Yeah, we're just covering it. Sorry. Okay. It says Excelsior. This.
Is that how he starts every journal entry?
He just wanted somebody to know if they came across it that it was definitely Stan Lee's.
Go back a couple of days. Did you say Excelsior in the first one?
This is the only entry they found. It was like a time capsule.
I
thing.
love that how he famously signs off is how he starts his journal entries.
Yeah, it may have been like another journal entry that got cut off.
Just ended
Hey,
there.
sometimes the ending is the beginning.
It says it's a short entry. It says, "This spider that caught my eye is now my lover, as I feel it in a way that only one can, the biblical way. I noticed its spry nature and youthful strength. I could sense I could sense that it was raised by an aunt and an uncle rather than immediate family." Sorry.
It's all right.
You should be.
It's all right. He's getting choked up. It's all right.
After climax, I enjoyed a ciggy and thought, I'll name my new lover Spider-Man. It's the Marvel way.
Couple of thoughts.
Well, you can see why he couldn't make that the origin story.
Right.
Had to be getting bit because
Right, yeah, it'd be a little bit too risque.
I'm guessing the question on everyone's mind is, what kind of spider was it? Do you guys think? If we can hypothesize,
I
here.
imagine like a wolf spider.
Wolf spider.
Or you think Black Widow?
I'm thinking Black Widow. 2 birds, 1 stone.
also, what
Ooh.
are the vibes that you catch from somebody or something that would make you think that it was raised by an aunt and an uncle?
I think you'd have to be in like intercourse, in love with it. Like
You could only know them biblically
yes.
to tell
They don't
how
call
they
you,
were raised.
They don't call you daddy. They call you uncle.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I see.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's news. It's comic news. And
Buried deep down on the pile of news. Yeah. Well, okay. Does anybody else have any unique news to share?
Nope.
well, I guess we just
BuzzFeed really put all its eggs into one basket this week.
Spider.
Oh, God damn it. Let's get this podcast started.
And now we have Stillwater out on Image Comic Books. It's a #1, and this is written by none other than Chip Zdarsky and illustrated by Ramon Perez. Kaylin, what is Stillwater about?
Stillwater is a town where nobody dies, and that's not just a promise, it's a threat.
Dun, dun, dun. You can tell that someone who worked at Image wrote that, and not Chip himself, because he probably read that synopsis when Image put it out, and he goes, well, fuck. You
Yeah.
gave away the ending.
You did, yeah. A couple upfront things about this book. If you don't know Chip Zdarsky, very famed writer, but mostly known for probably dripping in comedy and everything he does a little bit.
He has a tone. We've talked about this before. When you're reading a Chip Zdarsky book, you know you're reading a Chip Zdarsky book. It's very witty, kind of poignant, but still has some levity to it.
I actually think he's one of the best comic book writers, if not the best at writing comedy into comic books. Howard the Duck was awesome.
Howard the Duck was so funny. But I will say that he's writing a Daredevil run right now that is fantastic without a lick of humor in it.
And that's the other thing, is that he's crossed over recently in the last couple of years to just being like also just good comic book writer guy.
And I think you suspect or expect a certain level of like silliness with his books. And so when he does come hitting hard with like touching things or violent stuff, it was a little shocking at first. It almost made stuff like seem even heavier to me.
In the letters to the editor, is he revert to his silly side that like he does in Stillwater?
Yeah.
In Daredevil though?
Oh, you know what? I don't read the letters to the editor in Daredevil.
What's the point of buying the monthlies then?
To read them.
Yeah, I read them.
Oh, good point. Sorry.
I collect comic books.
You're right. Sorry.
I have expendable money, and I don't know what to do with it.
Another thing to say about this book is that I think it was very hotly anticipated. I've seen promotions for it for a while, and this is one of those comic books where they're giving an all-star writer his own series to kind of just go at it and do it. This has happened with, Cullen Bunn, Jason Aaron, Jeff Lemire, Matt Kint. Like, they get their books, and then people hype on them and are excited. I think that there's a lot of hype around this book.
Yeah, because the only other independent book that Chip's doing is Sex Criminals, right? And that's ending. Mostly he's doing Marvel and DC stuff. So this is just another entry into the indie realm with him. And, he does very well in Marvel and in DC, but in indie, he doesn't have any rules. You know what I mean? Like, he's not restrained by executives from DC or Marvel being like, Chip, that's a great idea. However, we can't really sell that on our line because we got different kinds of readers.
Yeah.
So,
he's unbound.
Yeah, Zdarsky Unbound. Exactly. And thanks, Greg. And so I think really, it's now when you see Zdarsky on a cover, like, you expect great things. It's kind of like when we talked about when we all got the Cyberpunk 2077. We all picked that up because Cullen Bunn was on that book. We didn't pick it up because we wanted to read that comic book.
Correct. So I think first up about this comic book that I would say, somebody's going to ask me my opinion on it. It's great. I loved it. I love Chip Zdarsky. I have some more intricate thoughts than that, but if you're just saying, like, if you just want to know, should I read this? Is it something to jump into? Yes, across the board. There's a little bit of convolutedness too when we get into the actual talking about the first issue, in my opinion.
Certainly. I'm wholly on board with that sentiment.
Okay.
Go read this book. Let's get into the weeds.
I think that the premise that Caitlin was talking about of like that nobody can die is not necessarily something that I've seen before, but it felt very familiar. And
like a Twilight Zone type of thing?
Yes. Yeah, it did feel like an episode of the Twilight Zone. And all the previews I saw of this book said, this is a slow burn, hold out, like wait. And I think that I felt that a little bit, is that like there needs to be some more punch in the next couple of issues to punch it up out of like world where nobody dies a little bit. And there was
there was a lot of punching in this.
And a good cliffhanger too.
There was a great cliffhanger, and there was a glimpse of the chaos, nutty craziness that could happen in the last handful of panels. Namely, I guess, because we can spoil it, I guess, right?
This podcast full of spoilers.
Well,
we're a reading club.
The biggest twist is spoiled in the synopsis. So
Yes.
anybody who's going to read that before they pick this book up is already going to have some of that.
It is. I didn't read that, and I don't think anybody read that synopsis before they read it.
No.
It
It made the reveal so much better.
that reading that makes this comic book worse, because it's like
Yeah, it does.
you're slowly. I didn't figure it out, and that was the brilliance of Chip's writing, was that like I'm like kind of like, wait a minute, what's the deal with this town?
So
The first inclination is when his eye starts to heal, but then you don't even really know why that's happening.
yeah, until the kid comes back to life from being pushed off of a 4-story building.
Yeah.
And no one in the town rushes to help this kid. And so you're just like, oh, something is not right in
That's
this
the
town.
Twilight Zone part of it. You get the sense that there's this force that people are either not questioning or very afraid of, and there are certain enforcers within the town.
It oddly like mimicked a little bit of Lovecraft Country. I don't know if you know.
I want to.
Okay.
I have not. I feel like that's right up my
Well,
alley too.
Oh yeah, it is. This doesn't spoil anything, but in the second episode, they're finding like a town that's off the map that they're trying to figure out like why are these people weird and stuff.
Also deals with inheritance, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, but I'm sure that it's just a coincidence.
Yeah,
that
it is a
they-
coincidence. Yeah, I'm not saying one's a derivative of the other. No.
So I guess we should say how these characters get to this town, right? We get this guy who's essentially a deadbeat. He has a string of bad luck. He got fired from his job. His girlfriend left him. He has no money. A strange man comes to his door and tells him a relative has died and left him an undisclosed amount of money.
A relative he's never heard of.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'll also point out at this point in the story, you hate our lead.
He's
Irredeemable.
yes.
Yes.
And
It was
his
like-
friend's like not that much better.
Anti-hero doesn't even do it justice. He's just
No.
anti.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he's like, the book starts out with him at like a cubicle in an office, and he's being a jerk, and he gets called into the like his boss's office, and she fires him because he shoved a guy that he works with.
And he's surprised that he's getting
And
fired.
he can't believe he's getting fired.
That's assault, brother. You can't hit at work.
No.
Oh, just the way he talks about like how it went and that it wasn't a big deal. I was just like, oh, I hate people like this guy.
And then he admits to being blackout fight guy.
Yeah.
The guy that gets blackout drunk and wants to fight.
We've
and
all
then
had
blames
that friend.
his friend for buying him drinks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they go on this adventure into this town of Stillwater.
Because it's his last hope, which I liked.
Mm-hmm.
That basically this money is the thing that could get him out of a rut.
For a time being. If this guy got a lot of money, I'm sure he would still find a way to find a rut.
Money cures most problems.
I wish. And so they arrive, and it's just like you guys have been talking about. It's a very, why do I want to say Ender's Gate? Twilight Zone. It's a very Twilight Zone scenario of just like nobody wants to talk about the town or the history, or no one makes eye contact, and it's just very eerie from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing with this book is that I expected like one little element to be like, and here's why. It's like the Twilight Zone meets, and it's like, there's not like a meets, really, except for like the guy's like kind of like crazy. I love the Twilight Zone. I think it's an interesting like world.
Well, it does get quite
Violent.
I guess the stakes are raised way more than they ever really were in Twilight Zone. And it stays pretty benign, I think. But I mean, he watches his friend get shot in the face.
I was gonna say that is the moment where I was like, "Ooh, this comic is crazy." He gets shot. His friend, who is one of the main characters up to this point, gets shot point blank in the face, dead. And I'm like, "Oh, that was rough."
So they explain that they know the parameters of where you can get shot and not die, and then you cross this one point of the city line, and if you get shot here, you definitely will die. Which, how they figured that out, I do not want to know.
But it also seems
That's
to
a
be...
great point.
Is it everybody? Like everybody that goes into that town? Because that's the other thing, is that it does allude to some sort of, not bloodline maybe, but just a certain type of person. Because his mom shows up.
Yeah,
At the end.
I just figured.
Oh, maybe
if
you
And
don't-
were-
his eye healed, but his friend wasn't injured.
Maybe
so
you don't
wouldn't have been able
age
to
as
tell.
well.
You don't age.
Okay.
That was confirmed.
So there's literally no like whatever it is, this dying happening.
No, you're just like frozen in time, essentially.
And that's why his mom, who he thought previously was gone, escaped to this area and just was immortal.
Or he was born in this town.
Ah.
That's what
And
I was
maybe
thinking,
like the
'cause she
father
said you
figure
found your
took
way
him
back.
out. Yeah.
Well, you think too, you can't be. If you were born in this town, you'd be an infant
Right.
forever,
Right.
right?
You'd
good
have
point.
to leave.
Yeah.
So you have to leave at some point and come back.
Right.
And I don't know if that was like a strategy with her mother. Imagine these kids that were like pushing each other off buildings. Are they like 50 years old?
Right.
And they're so jaded at this point that that's how they play,
They
is
just
like
don't give a
killing
shit.
each other.
Yeah.
It's like that girl in Black Hammer. who can
Yes.
who is like stuck being this little girl, 8-year-old girl, and she's actually like 60 something.
Right.
So
well, the
wait,
guy that gives him the letter says it was timing specific.
that's true. Well, okay, so let's say this mom does get pregnant inside the town. You can't grow a baby in your stomach. Womb, excuse me. Taking some birthing classes.
Thank you.
Because if you're stuck perpetually in the same, like, point in time in your life in this town, and if your body heals itself, I mean, you can't get pregnant. You can't. The baby won't grow, correct? Because the baby will be stuck in
Are
perpetual.
you calling birth death?
I'm calling birth growth, and you can't
Aging and development.
and you can't
Yeah.
grow and
So
develop
she would
in
have
this
had to
town.
leave the town
Okay.
to
Yeah.
have the child.
Correct, or she came. I don't know.
She went
Maybe she did.
Imagine asking this question at a convention. Excuse me, Chip.
Actually,
I noticed that if this child was conceived within the boundaries of Stillwater,
Oh man, that'd be escorted out of the building
now
so
would
quick.
he stay sperm in the vaginal lining for an indefinite period of time?
Here's the question I would ask. So that guy.
Do sperm live forever within the plumbing
Oh yeah.
of the town?
Oh yeah.
Just constantly whop.
Since this guy thought that his mom was dead, but she's actually alive. 2 members of our podcast have dead parents. Greg's father's dead. My mom's dead. Do you think our parents are in this town alive, actually?
Okay, so now you're hypothesizing that. First of all, I very much saw my dad die, so I know for a fact he's not in a farm upstate with other dads having a great time.
I'm in that boat too, but I just would like the creators to answer my hypothesis.
Now, if Stillwater turns out to be heaven or limbo or hell, sure. Okay,
Oh, man,
your
I
question
hope it
makes sense.
doesn't.
No,
I
that's
Stillwater?
shitty writing. That you're right.
Do not lost us right
Yes.
now.
If Stillwater turns out to be like limbo, I will burn every copy of Stillwater. And currently, I have 60 of them because I want to support you, Chip. I really like this book. The artwork by Ramon Perez was stunning. Yeah. I know this is a silly thing to say and comment on an audio podcast, but this really does make the book flow, and the actions and the dynamics of it all were really striking.
This book read like eating like a filet mignon. It just was like so
Meaty.
buttery good.
Yeah.
You just like kind of just like flow. At no part was I like bored or being like, what exactly happened?
This is full on Kobe beef.
Yeah, Kobe beef.
If you lived in a town disconnected from the outside world, where you never aged and never died, would you hold a job down? It seems very odd. There's like a diner and roles agreed upon. Maybe that's just like a social contract.
There very much seems like there's rules here because
Yeah.
they mention a judge and they mention a
sheriff.
sheriff.
And they're like, we don't want to involve the judge in this
So
Right.
they've
squabble.
got this cop
Right.
guy and they've got a doctor. So there are definitely,
So there
People
are
who have
hierarchies in
been-
this thing. I agree.
given duties or jobs to do within the town.
Because even if you can't die, you still got to eat.
I wouldn't go to school, I can tell you that.
Fuck school. I'd be pushing people off of buildings.
That's what they're doing.
You gotta have a job to know how you stack in society, though. So yeah, I need the man to tell me what I would do anyway.
well,
My job would be like this person's job in this comic was to wash blood off the street with a common hose.
Blood washer.
Yeah.
You would think there would be some comeuppance for these kids, right? Because they treat the people who've come into the town like they were the assholes who stirred trouble up. But none of this wouldn't happen if a child didn't like fly off of a building.
Well, they didn't know they had guests.
Do you think?
At
The
first-
guest bell
It
wasn't
seemed
rung.
like they
Well-
were staring at the guy,
and at first I
and
kind
then
of
one
thought,
shoved another one off a building.
Well, I mean, if there's a judge, there is some kind of law in this town, and the cop does mention no one can find out about this town. That's why they had to take him to the edge to kill him, because if I found out there was a town I could go to where I wouldn't die, well, I would be changing my address, and I would be moving to that town immediately.
Calling all your friends.
Yeah. Well, Maybe not. I don't want to.
I'll get new friends.
Yeah. Friends that I'll have forever.
New immortal friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like immortal friends better than my mortal friends.
Imagine getting in trouble in this town, though. Like, your jail time would be forever. Like, 50 years. And you're going to be like, God damn it, I won't even die. I'll just be bored out of my mind.
Yeah, you'd have to just kill people in that scenario.
Yeah. Take them to the edge.
Or just become desensitized like vampire societies are portrayed, where they just like don't care
They don't care.
about people doing much.
Four life sentences for the Golden State Killer would really mean something here if he lived for a while.
Truth.
For me, there would really have to be job rotation. Like, I couldn't be server in the diner for infinity.
Yeah.
You would have to rotate me with, like,
Blood bathing.
chef, teacher, blood washer.
So, every year, come January, everyone's name gets put in a hat.
Okay.
And then...
You could be mayor.
And there's this...
For a while.
You could be
You
judge.
get to put the hat on at the end of it.
Right.
You could be a kid pusher.
Yeah, and so there's two hats. There's name hat and then there's job hat. And, if you sell the most cookies that year, you get to be the one to put your hands in and pick people's names and jobs out.
You get more names in.
No. Everyone has one name in, and there's only one job, and there's no cheating. No cheating allowed in Stillwater.
If that is actually happens in this comic book, that's gonna be amazing that you called it.
I
You
can't
called that
wait to
shot.
get into the politics of this.
This is my half-court shot.
Well, we're going to meet the judge
You Babe Ruthed it.
at some point, so we're going to learn a little bit more about what they have going on.
Okay, so let's call it now. Is this place buried on top of an ancient burial ground? Is this place hexed? Or is it like, I don't know, something in the water? What makes Stillwater Stillwater?
I'll go with not something in the water, but
Oh, okay. Well,
Or maybe
quick.
I was just thinking like it just was like a void area, like that the people didn't really know.
A corner where God can't see.
Yes, where the sun doesn't shine.
What if it
God
has
make a
something
hat
to
so
do
big?
with the judge? And that's why the judge is so formidable.
Like he passes out a vitamin every year?
Or like the
He's a
children
wizard.
of the corn, or like
Ooh.
the little kid who just wishes people away or something. Like, what if it's the judge can like do something that keeps the perimeter as such?
Interesting.
The fact that it's such a hard line leads me to believe that there's no, like, it's not like the magnetic fields of, like,
Yeah.
the earth below.
Right. So it's very much
Magical.
magical. Okay.
I think we're gonna find out that the judge and the sheriff are bad boys, like the governor in.
Or bad girls.
Oh, sorry, bad people.
What a reveal would that be if you saw a judge and it was
And
a
she
woman?
took off her judge hat
Oh,
and she
yeah.
shook her hair out.
And she had boobies.
Wait, the judge is hot?
The judge can milk her children.
Milk her children.
I've never
Other way
heard
around.
nursing being described like that.
Holy moly. Yeah, you can hold me in contempt all you want, sweetheart. Stillwater freaking rules.
The children milk the judge. It's the other way around.
That's how people don't die.
Sorry, I put my words around.
That's all I got on Stillwater. Let's end on milk jugging.
Milking children.
Milk jug or milk judge?
Hello, I'm Judge Milk. And would you like some?
Because I actually
I've just finished milking my children. I have plenty.
I've got a warm liter right here.
All right. Next up, we have Iron Man #1 on Marvel by Christopher Cantwell and CAFU, which, if you didn't know, is an acronym for Carlos Alberto Fernandez Urbano.
If you didn't know that, call the First Issue Club hotline, 816-200-0014. Let us know.
Yeah, and tell us things. Before we say anything about this, Caitlin, does this Iron Man have like a weird like Iron Man subtitle or anything like that, like Iron Man 2020, or it's just the new Iron Man series?
I think it's just new.
Okay.
I also will say before we get into the synopsis that, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't. We can cut that. I'll talk about it a little bit later.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
What is the synopsis of this book?
So, Tony is putting away his high-tech toys and high-profile image so he can get his hands dirty again. But life isn't always that simple, something that old friends and frustrating foes are quick to point out.
That is definitely this book.
I found it very refreshing, and I wanted to kind of start this conversation by commenting on the personal roller coaster ride that I've had with Marvel Comics and first issues and reboots. That when you start reading comics, it's awesome. It's the best case scenario, right? We're starting fresh with another Iron Man that you can jump right in, and we're back to basics, right? When you keep reading comics for a while and you've been in for several years, you start to know and love the things about those story arcs and what makes Tony Stark Tony Stark. And so when another artist jumps on and another, author jumps on and changes the essence of that character or just restarts it, you feel like, what have I been reading? Like that's all it's just like all thrown out the window what I've invested in this character. And now I'm at a point where I think I'm going back up where I'm saying, you know what? You've got unique artists and unique takes where they want to tell their story about these characters that we know. And you can't tell the same story forever. Sometimes it's very refreshing to have a new start that's accessible and get back to basics. And that's what this story is getting back to basics. And I can't think of a more convoluted, complicated place to have come from than Dan Slott's Iron Man run.
Ooh.
I mean, it just tied in the complete history and background of everything Iron Man's ever been and like turned that on its head and was just weaving so many things together. And I could not keep up. All the like Force Works tie-ins and
the 2020,
all the 2020 stuff and like
Arno,
the cleverness of like and like Arno Stark being brought in as like a real character. Tony's now like a robot and has been for a while. It was cool to just see like Tony have a bit of an existential crisis and want to get back to simplicity.
Just like normal Iron Man.
And I love that we've got additional sorry, I'm like monologuing here, but I also love that we've got another hero that we're familiar with that is kind of calling him out, like, of course, rich guy egomaniac being like back to basics. Like
with your $65 billion payout.
Yeah, you're never gonna get away from your ego, Tony. Like that's who you are. And whatever is happening right now is in some form an ego trip or playing to that. Like you can't escape yourself. So there's some great commentary there too.
And it's Hellcat that is doing this. Was Hellcat in the Dan Slott? Like, is that a continuation of something?
I think what it harkens back to is when Iron Man first started, and he was like New York, guy in the street helping New York, and Hellcat was there, and, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, those are the people he ran with.
Well, can you think of a more like on the street sort of character? Like Hellcat isn't bigger than the world, like crazy, insane superpowers flying around the city.
Nope. She's not going to space and helping Thor.
Yep. They busted the crime they were looking to solve in this was busting a guy from stealing a book at a library.
Well, the book.
The book.
The Gutenberg Bible.
I will say, though, that even though this is a refreshing point, I don't think it's very accessible for new people, which is a lot of times a problem I have with number ones that aren't really number
Quote, unquote,
ones.
number ones.
Yeah. Because if I didn't know, I happen to know who Hellcat is. I don't know who Janet is. I don't know who the bad guys are. So, like, it's not necessarily, it feels like those are very much nods to people who are like, oh, awesome, I get that. I know who that is. Oh, he's back. Like, and I don't know it's just, I don't know that it would be a totally brand new jumping on point.
I think you're right. And to your point and to Mike D's point, this still very much is a spill out from Iron Man 2020. He references that machines need to make machines. Janet Van Dyke, the Wasp, in the 2020 thing, they were like dating in Dan Slott's realm. They were like dating, and so they threw in that one throwaway page of just like,
I guessed, but that was it. Just I don't know that anybody.
I kept
not knowing.
I mean,
no, you're right. If you came into this just like, ooh, because number one Iron Man.
I'm a plebe. I kept on being like, where's Pepper Potts?
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I guess I at least appreciated that if I had come from this series and invested a lot of time into the previous run, then at least I've got someone acknowledging that those things even happened.
That does feel good.
But the way that they're doing it is just so like, I love that it was like this fucking insane week that Tony's had. It was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was kind of the structure of this comic. And you're just flashing through the crisis he's going through and changing his life. And to acknowledge those things in like one panel that represents one day in his life and then move on from that, I thought was really clever to like try to keep it fresh but honor that old stuff.
Right.
When I get a reboot, I want to see like a new take on something. I think Kelly Thompson is actually really good at this. Like Deadpool with Monster Island.
Yeah.
Black Widow kind of going into like love Archie stuff with the like comic book that we read last time. And I think that this comic started out that way and said, hey, it's going to be no social media, no techie, Iron Man. My confusion actually was just that was insane. And I was like, how is this even going to continue? And then it just became an Iron Man book near the end again.
I guess a different sort of Iron Man book, in my opinion. There was a handful, and maybe this is just because I'm a Marvel
it's a good take.
mega fan, is that they made a point of saying that like, hey, he's talking to his like in-helmet AI, and since it's his old Iron Man suit that he's wearing, like it's just like command unrecognized, and he's like, oh fuck.
I love that the computer code just like doesn't go. Yeah. Okay, that
with
makes
as many problems as we have with Alexa, like not understanding a question, it is very funny and humanizing to have him have an experience like that with all of his toys. It's never been like, I do not understand what you're saying.
The narrative that you're giving, Mike, honestly makes this comic seem brilliant, and I needed it.
And one of the problems that I have with some of those high-tech Iron Man things that have been in previous runs is that he's so smart that he can do anything, right? Mm-hmm. And you've seen his suit do like endlessly amazing things through like so many stories that the continuity of that, it's like, oh, he can solve that problem. Oh, he's got a quick fix for that. And it's such a bullshit fix for whatever problem's at hand, just like old Batman comics. Like, oh, he's trapped underwater and he's going to drown. Well, guess what? He's got an air capsule in his bat belt.
Goddamn bat belt.
And
We've never mentioned it to you before, but we conveniently have it now.
The world's tiniest scuba mask. He's going to pull out of that fucking utility belt and he's good to go.
Shaped like a bat signal.
It's like the sloppiest writing ever. And this kind of takes away the ability to just like solve every problem with technology. Mm-hmm. And you can only do that if his ego is so large that he says, I can do this without all my tech.
Right. He used to be running on Windows XP. Now he's on Windows 95.
He went and bought a charger or whatever it was, like a normal man's car.
Oh, yeah. I don't know cars. It looked like a Fast and Furious car, which I assume means it goes fast.
Exactly.
Furiously fast.
With some NOS.
Yeah. I don't think I had NOS.
We're all family here.
And even like he gets into a street race.
And loses.
He loses.
Loses.
And he's not, souping up the car like crazy, right? He's trying to win on
His own merit.
his own medal, yeah.
And so does that not show a little bit of just like maybe he relied too heavily on his own technology and his own skill is not that great?
Well, and it's paralleling with all the praise he's still trying to get on social media or
Oh,
doing
God.
interviews. And finally, he just has to delete it and say, I can't even rely on that tech anymore to boost what I feel like I'm doing.
I feel like that was a nod to every comic book creator that just was just like, you know what? Fuck social media. Like, I can't please any of you jackasses at all. And so I thought that was like a really fun page of just like Iron Man has deleted Twitter.
I also loved Patsy Walker's read on everything, where he's trying to explain what we're talking about to her, and she's like, why don't you just scream, "Who am I?" into the darkness right now?
Yeah.
I was like, that's such a good line.
She totally just calls him on his BS.
Yeah, and he's like, "You're so mean."
I do love how just straight up mean she is to him.
And it kind of goes to show you, like, old friend that keeps it real with you. Like,
Yeah.
those people who knew you when you were like just getting started are the people who aren't gonna like pat your behind at all.
Right. Like he takes her to show him the car and she goes, if you do anything gross down here, I'm going to kick your ass. So like, don't try to do anything. Yeah.
No, it was good. And Christopher Cantwell has written a lot of things that we like.
So I liked the Doom run that he did recently.
Oh,
a lot.
so good.
It was so strange tonally. If you've listened to our podcast consistently, you know that it's like a thing that I love about this. Like, it was so hard to pinpoint whether it was like funny, dark, serious. Like, the feeling it gave you issue to issue was just uncomfortable.
Right.
And it was just so interesting to me.
Well-
Like, it might have been one of those things too where I say, is he like a genius or just like a bad writer? And I'm like putting that on him. You know what I mean?
Well,
like, I don't know, but it
might
was
be
like,
his style,
I
'cause-
love it.
Because that was the same exact style of everything.
Everything I've loved.
The indie
Yeah.
book that he did.
I loved that comic.
That was the title of the comic book, everyone. It was Everything.
Everything.
On Burger Books, right?
I was on Burger Books, so yeah.
Which is a Dark Horse imprint.
Right.
Was that the Superstore one?
Yes.
Okay.
I have something that is going to make, I think, everyone in the room pretty happy. So in December, a book is coming out. It kind of ties into the King in Black thing with Null.
Marvel event, yeah.
It's Christopher Cantwell's writing this. It's Doctor Doom, Iron Man versus Santa Claus.
Oh my God.
I assume it's a one-off.
It is a one-off. Who is, and if you don't know this, Santa Claus is an Omega level mutant.
Okay, now that I love.
So I think that may be like one of the shining jewels in the crown of this winter event for Marvel.
And it's part of the like Null event.
Santa's an Omega level mutant.
So I love Christopher Cantwell's writing. It's so kind of, it's not goofball, and I don't want to use that word because it's not like he's being funny, or it's like if Kids in the Hall was a comic book. There's serious and poignant things, and like it's just like this weird, distorted kind of humor that if you really connect with it, it pays off very, very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
We recently saw that he's going to be the showrunner writer for Paper Girls.
Paper Girls, yeah.
Brian K. Vaughan comic that was out on Image.
Which that's going to be on Amazon Prime, I think. The TV
that
show.
comic is so fucking good.
Oh, it's amazing.
I loved it.
Brian K. Vaughan posted a tweet of the picture he took of the Paper Girls timeline, which if you know anything about the comic book Paper Girls, it deals with future, past, present, going back into time and whatever. And he has it's just like a straight line and then like scribbles all over it of just like, this person's here when this person is here and then this person's there and then they all go back to here. And it is the most insane ramblings I've ever seen jotted down.
I love that.
Other than Stan Lee's journal we saw earlier in the
Yeah.
episode. Okay, so the Tony meets a person at a party who says that they can control lightning.
Yeah, this is going to be our future bad guy.
Do you know who it is?
I don't.
Okay, his name's Korvac.
Oh, he's an existing character.
Oh.
Do you remember all the way back from Marvel 1000
Yeah.
where that was the last panel was
Yep.
they say Korvac is alive, which is like this person with like tubes in his eyes and stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's going to be like a major villain now in this.
Right.
He seemed pretty like pedestrian as a villain.
I think he has more cosmic abilities to show us as it goes on.
Well, that was half his face, wasn't it? Like alluding to Cosmos.
Das Cosmos. Yes. In a fake language.
Very similar to an introduction of a villain in the MCU with Iron Man, someone that comes up to pitch Tony Stark and he blows him off and then he turns into like a resentful, super smart maniac that comes after him.
Yep.
So similar setup to that. Feels familiar.
Feels very familiar.
Right.
Almost too familiar.
If I could just say,
Please do.
it feels like I've seen this.
Having deja vu here with this comic book. I liked it a lot. I thought it was good. I agree with Caitlin. It's not the best number one, quote unquote, for beginning readers because it does rely on the knowledge that you know Iron Man in a more intimate way than just a Marvel movie. So maybe the payoff for new readers to Marvel isn't the best, but if you're a longtime Iron Man fan,
Looking to get back into it.
looking to get, and you weren't a fan of the Dan Slott run or whatever, which
Yeah.
that's fine, I get that.
And to be honest, the more, the more I try to introduce people who don't read comics to comics, the more I'm like, this just doesn't happen. I don't think many people come in from like off the street having not purchased a comic in like years and say, I'm going to start with
Well, no,
Iron Man that came out today.
Okay, that doesn't happen, but I think this scenario of people reading a handful of indie books. Imagine the journey of you read Blankets, you read Saga,
Yeah.
you got into another Image book that you liked, and now you say, hey, the big two's all around me. Could I actually get into a book reading it?
Sure.
You might want to pick up a rebooted, like, new comic book.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
Or
Well-
if you really, really, really like the MCU and you decide to get your feet wet in comics and try to pick up this.
Yeah, that we have a mutual friend, Andy Vargas, who I always assumed had read comic books his entire life, and he recently told me he just picked it up like beginning of college, ending up high school, and like his knowledge of comic books is insane.
Yeah.
And he just decided to get into it one day. Like, I don't know if he just kind of held his nose and jumped into the waters of DC comic books, but I mean that's one way of doing it. But I agree. I don't think you get some gen public walking off the street just like, and I will today choose this one. And
I think a lot of people starting into, and this is probably a better place to start with a lot of Marvel characters if you're wanting to dip your toe in, is like look up famous runs of things and start with some
yeah.
of those trades.
yeah,
Does that make more sense? Like if I've never read a Spider-Man book, I might say, oh, okay, this like Kraven the Hunter series is like a great encapsulated story that's like really famous
Sure.
that gives me some knowledge
But
of the character.
At the same time, I feel like one of the beauties of comic books is that the entry point takes a little bit of work. That it's not completely like. Yeah, I'm glad we picked this book to cover. It was fun. Great Alex Ross cover too, which we didn't mention.
Right. A lot of the great, he's been doing alternate covers for a lot of Marvel books now.
Have you seen
They've
those?
been calling them the timeless covers.
Yeah.
And they're just beautiful portraits.
How old is he now?
Alex Ross?
That's a good question. I don't know.
He is 72.
I hope-
Wow. How did?
I hope he's
I was
not-
gonna say. I was gonna say I was impressed.
I would say mid to late 50s. Because Alex Ross has been around for a minute.
And before every episode, I look up Sarah Michelle Gellar on IMDb and
50.
he checks to see how old Alex Ross is.
Yep. 50. Alex Ross, 50. Looking
Spry.
fine for
Spry.
50.
Spry, good.
His
Yeah.
hand's still good if he can still paint that beautifully.
Oh man. Oh man.
okay.
Those old Kingdom Come covers and
Alex Ross, if you're listening to this podcast,
Which
now,
he is.
which I assume you are, drink a lot of water. Your hamstrings are the first thing to go. Make sure that you work out those every day.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's the first mile.
Wait, for real?
Yep. Her hamstrings are your first muscle to go as you get older. Eating berries, a handful a day, will decrease your chance of cancer by 8%. So
What kind of berries? Any kind of berries?
I think any berries
Okay.
in general.
All right.
So do all of those things for us and for the comic book world, please.
We'd greatly appreciate it. We need you around for a long time, big guy.
50 ain't that old, but we want you 50 more.
We want you for 50 more. We want 100-year-old Alex Ross still on the fucking grindstone.
Yep, I'm still painting.
Well, do we have anything else we want to talk about, everybody?
All right, 50 more years, Alex.
We're gonna
Can you give us 50 more?
hold you to it, I guess.
Eat those berries. Handful of berries.
Yeah, fuck those
for
spiders.
Alex Ross.
Fuck those spiders.
Fuck those spiders.
Aight. Bye.
No. Is that what we do? Is that how we end in
No,
Matt?
no. We just
Yeah, we just say bye.
Okay.
did we do something different?
You know how
You
I'm not
got
very good
real,
with goodbyes.
real mad about it.
Oh, you want to do a little bit of reminders?
No, I just hate goodbyes.
Greg wanted to say that we're up for the Pitch Awards. It's on all of our socials.
Oh, no, I don't want that. I know we're going to win, so it doesn't matter.
How do you know we're gonna win?
We got socials that you could do all our kind of stuff. We need to remind you, we also have a Patreon. It is First Issue Club on patreon.com. We got lots of extra episodes over there. We also have a phone number now. Tell them those digits.
816-200-00144 First Issue Club.
And we got...
Can't be 00144.
Yeah, try it again.
I don't know what number that's going to call, but
Please don't call that one.
it's 816-200-0014 for First Issue Club voicemail.
And we got our music by Primary Color Music. And we, as always, are recording from the moon. Anything else?
No, that's it.